Alright. Herzlich willkommen nochmal an alle Besucherinnen und Besucher hier im Saal im Senckenberg Naturmuseum Frankfurt und auch herzlich willkommen alle Besucher, die jetzt online live dabei sind.
Hello and welcome. We're very happy to have everyone here for this International Evening of Science. We have a live audience here in Frankfurt, and we have a lot more people listening to us around the world online. And the star of the show will soon be connecting by a satellite connection to the research vessel SONNE.
Genau, ich bin Hendrik Denkers, Mitarbeiter hier im Museum in der Bildung und Vermittlung.
And my name is Julia Sigwart. I'm a professor and curator here at the Senckenberg Research Institute and Natural History Museum.
Wir werden das Ganze sprachlich in dem ersten Teil etwas aufteilen. Ich werde hier vor allem auf Deutsch sprechen.
So the first part will have bilingual in both German and in English, but most of the presentations that you'll hear will be in English from the international scientific team that's presenting to us tonight.
Okay, right. Also nochmal herzlich willkommen zu diesem besonderen Abend, dem Satellitenevent des Clean Ocean Laboratories der UN Dekade der Ozeanforschung. Und wir haben ja schon ein bisschen angerissen, was heute passieren wird.
Tonight is a satellite event of the Clean Ocean Laboratory, which is part of the United Nations Ocean Decade. And we have a lot of other activities that are going on as part of the UN Decade, which you can join online. But today you get a chance to experience marine research live through our satellite connection to the SONNE, to get to know the scientists who are doing ocean research and to understand the tools that they're using and the methods that we use to solve global ocean problems.
Also heute haben Sie die Chance, Meeresforschung live zu erleben von den Leuten, die sie machen. Nämlich genau in dieser Sekunde fährt ein paar tausend Kilometer westlich von hier das deutsche Forschungsschiff SONNE mitten durch die Labradorsee zwischen Kanada und Grönland. Und da werden wir gleich hinschalten.
So soon we'll be joining the research vessel SONNE, which is currently somewhere about 4,000 kilometers away in the Labrador Sea. That's in the North Atlantic between Greenland and Canada. And in fact, when we meet our friends on the ship, you might see some motion. We were talking to them earlier, and it seems like they have some rough waves in November out on the open ocean.
Ja. An Bord sind etwa 60 Leute. 35 Crewmitglieder, 27 Wissenschaftlerinnen und Wissenschaftler, die vor allem eine Mission in dieser Expedition haben, die Artenvielfalt in der Tiefsee zu erforschen. Und eigentlich haben die genug zu tun, nehmen sich aber heute die Zeit, um eben live von ihrer Forschung zu berichten und vor allem, um uns so ein bisschen mitzugeben, dass unsere Aktivitäten hier am Festland auch eine Auswirkung auf die Lebensräume haben, die sie dort untersuchen.
So there's more than 60 people on board the ship. There's 35 crew and 27 scientists, and their mission is to explore the biodiversity in the deep sea. So they have a lot of work to do, and we'll hear from the crew on the ship themselves, but also many of the other scientific projects that are connected to this expedition. And they have a lot of work to do to use this time that they have at sea, which is very limited and very demanding. And so we're very grateful to them that they've taken some of their time to speak to us about their research and about how important it is and how we're connected, what we do on land, to how it impacts the health and the survivability of our global ocean.
Wir fangen heute an mit einer kleinen Gesprächsrunde, die hier vor Ort stattfinden wird. Wir haben nämlich auch hier in Frankfurt Wissenschaftlerinnen und Wissenschaftler, die sich sehr gut mit der Tiefsee auskennen. Um Punkt 17 Uhr, vielleicht ein bisschen später mal gucken, wird es dann sehr spannend. Wir schauen, ob wir die Live-Schaltung zu diesem Forschungsschiff SONNE hinbekommen. Vorhin hat es sehr gut geklappt. Wir drücken die Daumen, dass alles mitspielt. Im Anschluss daran werden wir dann so ein bisschen Infos von anderen beteiligten Projekten kriegen, die sich alle um das Thema drehen, unter dem der Abend heute steht. Ein sauberer Ozean und ganz besonders das Thema Plastikverschmutzung im Meer. Und ganz am Ende wird es noch eine Fragerunde geben, wo dann die Wissenschaftler zur Verfügung stehen für Ihre Fragen. Das heißt, seien Sie neugierig, bewahren Sie sich Ihr Interesse und bringen Sie Ihre Fragen später ein.
So tonight we're first going to talk to some of the scientists that we have here in the Senckenberg Institute, people who are working on questions of deep sea biodiversity and global ocean biodiversity, who can answer some questions from us. But then the star of the show at 5 p.m. will connect live to our research colleagues on board the SONNE, well, we hope that it will work. In fact, of course, when we're relying on a satellite connection to the middle of the ocean, we always have a little bit of fear about whether the technique will actually perform for us. So we ask for your patience and your celebration when it does work correctly. So we'll talk about everyday life on the ship, as well as what research they're doing, and the important work that they're doing to support a clean ocean, including some different themes and some different familiar problems, like the importance of plastic pollution in the ocean. And of course, there will be a chance for us to take your questions, which we will explain to you in a little while, how you can interact and pose your own questions and comments to all of the scientists who are participating today.
Vorher schon mal, wir haben jetzt gehört, es wird wahrscheinlich so ein bisschen rough, es wird vielleicht ein bisschen laut und alle Beteiligten sind eben Wissenschaftlerinnen und Wissenschaftler. Das heißt, wir kriegen jetzt keine Hollywood-Qualität, auch wegen der Verbindung nicht. Das Schiff ist wie gesagt 4000 Kilometer weit weg und wir haben ja hier im Hörsaal schon nicht das beste WLAN. Das heißt, auf dem Schiff können wir auch mit schlechtem Empfang rechnen. Das also nur als Disclaimer, aber ich denke, wir haben trotzdem ein tolles Programm zusammengebastelt und Sie können sich auf was gespannt machen.
Well, as Hendrik said, I think it's quite clear that we are real scientists and not Hollywood stars. And so we think that you will see this also in the quality of the video that we present. There's some noise, there are some waves, but this is the real insight behind the scenes into a real scientific expedition on the high seas. So we hope that we will still be able to connect the ship. As we said, it's 4,000 kilometers away, but we expect that the reception to the ship will be almost as good as we have speaking to you here live in Frankfurt.
Wenn Sie jetzt schon Fragen haben, können Sie dafür das Tool Slido nutzen. Sie haben alle ein Programm gekriegt. Dort sind auf der vorletzten Seite 2 QR-Codes unten drin. Über dieses Programm haben Sie die Möglichkeit, selber jetzt schon Fragen reinzuschreiben und an Umfragen teilzunehmen. Also nutzen Sie gern die Chance währenddessen und später. Und wir haben da schon eine kleine Frage vorbereitet, die Sie direkt als erstes beantworten können, nämlich inwiefern Sie selbst sich eigentlich selber für das Plastikmüllproblem verantwortlich fühlen. Genau, und so sieht das dann aus. Sie können da abstimmen und diese Frage beantworten.
So everyone at home and here in the audience and all around the world and all the ships at sea can participate in this event through the platform Slido. So those of you who are here in the room with us have a printed program and you can find a QR code on the last page that will link you directly to Slido. Or you can join from your phone anywhere in the world using slido.com, SLIDO.com, and using the code CLEANOcean. And we've put on the screen one example question that was briefly, how do you feel connected to your participation in a clean ocean? Actually, I didn't see the screen, so I'm guessing.
Wir haben außerdem noch ein paar Expertinnen und Experten, die nicht auf dem Schiff sind, die auf Zoom zugeschaltet sind. Die werden wir dann später im Detail vorstellen. Und alle beteiligten Projekte wollen wir... hier sehen wir einmal die Zoom-Wissenschaftler. Vielleicht einmal winken. Ich weiß nicht, ob Sie uns sehen können. Ich glaube, wir müssen da unten in die Kamera winken. Genau.
So we have experts joining us on the ship, but also a number of other scientists who are joining us to represent the many different projects that are connected to this expedition, who are not on the ship but are joining us here by Zoom. And they will give us short presentations as we go along this evening, and some of them will be here to take questions from you that you enter through Slido. Thanks for joining us.
Ja. Alle diese Wissenschaftler sind aus ganz verschiedenen Projekten. Wir werden das einmal nur ganz kurz hier abreißen. Wir haben das Projekt, das Forschungsprogramm iAtlantic, wo es darum geht, atlantische Ökosysteme zu untersuchen. Das Projekt Plasticity, bei dem es um Mikroorganismen geht, die Plastik zersetzen können. Wir haben das Projekt Hot Mic. Diese Projekte haben alle ganz interessante, spannende Namen. Da geht es vor allem um die Verbreitung von Mikroplastik im Ozean. Und ganz am Ende werden wir noch das DOSI-Netzwerk kennenlernen, ein Netzwerk aus Tiefseeforschenden, die möchten, dass ihre Forschung auch die Politik beeinflusst. Und aus diesen Projekten werden also die ganzen beteiligten Partner gleich berichten.
So the projects that we'll meet, the most important ones, are iAtlantic, and we'll meet several iAtlantic fellows, so young researchers who are working directly with this iAtlantic program, which is a European Union-funded research network looking at Atlantic ecosystems. And actually it studies the whole Atlantic Ocean, both the North Atlantic, where we are, but also the South Atlantic, between South America and Africa, supporting how we can have a sustainable ocean system for supporting a blue economy. We'll also meet the program Plasticity, which is based in Geomar, which is a German consortium of researchers who are working on novel solutions for cleaning up plastic waste, especially using enzymes and microorganisms to remove plastic from the oceans. And another program, HotMike, which is an international European research program studying how plastic is transported in the ocean and how much of that plastic is floating at the ocean surface. And finally, we'll meet DOSI, the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative. Actually, I'm on the advisory board of DOSI, but I'm not going to be talking about it. And DOSI is a network of deep sea scientists that try to keep information available for anybody who wants to know more about the deep sea, including for policymakers and decision makers concerning how the deep ocean is impacted by climate change, mining, and especially tonight, pollution.
Right, so, wir sind gut in der Zeit. Bevor wir jetzt in etwa 20 Minuten den Kontakt zur Sonne herstellen, haben wir jetzt hier nochmal Gäste eingeladen, hier aus dem Frankfurter Institut, die hier Meeresforschung machen und beide auch schon auf Expeditionen waren, deswegen ganz viel berichten können. Und als ersten Gast laden wir dann Torben Riedl ein.
So we're going to welcome two different scientists who work here in the Marine Zoology Department in Frankfurt in the Senckenberg Research Institute and Museum. We'll have first Dr. Torben Riedl. Please sit down.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Torben, it says here on my notes that you like chili peppers, that you like making discoveries, and you enjoy photography of ocean creatures, but that you dislike small talk and narrow-mindedness.
Yes, that's right.
A good description. So we were going to ask you if you could just describe your research and your work just briefly for the audience.
Okay, yes. I'd like to. First of all, my work never gets boring. I'm basically always challenged, and this is very interesting when you're in science. Normally, I go out to sea on ships like SONNE, that you'll see later. Every now and then, every 2 years or so, I collect samples because I'm interested in basically the question how the fauna living in the deep sea evolved and what factors contributed to their evolution. So I need to collect the animals from the deep sea, compare them to our nice research collections that we have here in this building that are essential infrastructure for this kind of work. And most of the time I'm encountering animals that nobody has seen before. So I have to give them names so we can talk about them. This part of science is called taxonomy. We're discovering new species, we're naming them, and we're describing them so that other people can compare them. And then we'll deposit the material here in the collections in this very building.
Okay. What would be your favorite deep sea creature? And I guess you brought something with us today, so maybe you could pick one of those.
Well, it's actually a very difficult question because, to be honest, I haven't made a decision and I'm not going to make one tonight. But this is definitely one of my favorites. That's not an original, it's a model. It's a very nice model of the bone-eater worm Ocedax. That's a polychaete relative. These are like little bristle worms living in the sea. And this one is very special because it grows a root system in the bones of dead whale carcasses and has a very interesting lifestyle because it doesn't have a stomach or a mouth, but it feeds from bacteria that it keeps in specialized organs, which make use of energy-rich components, lipids that you find in the bones. So it's a very interesting animal that shows that there's nothing in the deep sea that's not being used by an animal.
So are there really species that have never been named that still need to be discovered?
Yes, there are. I think they're everywhere still, but environments like the deep sea have a particularly high number of undiscovered species. We estimate that at least 91% of the species of the oceans are not discovered yet.
There's a lot of work still to be done.
Yes.
Sounds like it. Okay, thanks a lot for the first few questions. We have another guest coming, and maybe it's time to bring her on stage. Also from the Institute in Frankfurt, please, a warm welcome for Dr. Haniye Saidi.
Please come and sit down.
Hi.
Very
Nice
glad to have you. I like this musical intro. It makes us all feel like rock stars when we're used to being scientists. So, Hani, in our notes it says that you like the color blue,
Yes.
cooking international food, and a clean ocean, which is very appropriate for this evening. But that you dislike waking up early, doing your taxes, and also ignorance in marine policy.
Yes, that's
Okay.
true.
And we'll try to combat some of that tonight, so you're doing a good service.
So maybe you could also describe your research here in Frankfurt in just a few words, a few sentences for us.
Sure. So as you heard actually from my colleague, Torben, my work comes after their effort. So they go to the sea and collect animals and take all these animals to the museums, and they curate them, and at the end we will have some collections, natural history collections. My research relies on natural history collections data, also the open access data. So I apply biodiversity informatics on big data and try to discover and uncover the biodiversity patterns in the marine areas, ecosystems, in shallow water ecosystems, in deep sea ecosystems. And also I'm interested to predict how climate change will impact the future distributions of these animals, how these animals will respond to future climate change, and to make sure that my research has an impact. I work closely with IPBES, which is Science Policy Intergovernmental Body, and we inform the science policymakers to make sure that they establish good management plans for deep sea areas, for example, and also to make sure that we keep the ocean clean and also sustainable ocean.
Well, this is all really interesting. And both of you have mentioned the collections, the scientific collections here in the museum in Frankfurt. How large are those collections?
In our crustacean, I can give most information about my crustacean collection because I'm a crustacean specialist. I work with these animals that you know, probably crabs and lobsters. There are many more living, especially in the oceans. We've got roughly 500,000 lots in our collection, and they date back to more than 200 years before our time. So we have a window into the past, and as Hani just said, we can make use of this data to have a look into the future as well. Very interesting.
And so these data sets that you're working with really can contain millions of records of species from around the world.
Sure. For example, we have internal databases here at Senckenberg that we archive the data internally at Senckenberg, but we also have open access databases that we move our data from internal databases into these international databases, such as OBIUS, Ocean Biodiversity Information System, that contains more than millions of data and billions of data.
It's amazing. And I think that people will find it a little bit surprising that there's so much marine research that's based here in Frankfurt, where we're a little bit far away from the ocean. What do you think about that? Is this a good place to be doing marine research?
For me, it doesn't matter actually. I can do my research everywhere because I work with data, but I think that Torben can respond to this much better.
Well, I used to live much closer to the coast. But first of all, whenever we go on ships like SONNE, usually we fly off from Frankfurt to a remote town somewhere which has a port where the ship and where the ships lie and the expedition starts. But also, and I actually don't know if this is true, but I heard the story that through Frankfurt Airport there's more fish imported than via all the port towns at the German coast together. We should check that, but it's very
Yeah.
interesting.
So Frankfurt is actually the largest port
Wow.
in Germany because, so much of our traffic is air freight.
Yes.
Maybe one last question for both of you. You're doing your work at the moment here in Frankfurt. Would you right now rather be on the ship with the other guys or sitting here in your lab? What is more fun for you?
This question is mean because I really love to be at sea. I really love it and I miss it a little bit. I'm looking forward to next year when my next expedition will take place. But this is only the beginning of the endeavor of every discovery being made. There we do the collections, but all the analysis, like 90% of the work has to follow after, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. So we have to go through all of that.
And Honey?
I would say that I would love to be there actually on the cruise because, I work with data, but I always miss being on the ship and also working with animals because I used to be a taxonomist and now working with data. I like both, but to be honest, sometimes I really miss to be on the ship.
It's nice to have a good balance, isn't it?
Okay, vielen, vielen Dank schon mal. Wir werden jetzt auch gleich einen ersten Eindruck von dem Leben auf dem Schiff kriegen. Die aktuelle Expedition trägt den hübschen Namen Ice Diva und vorher gab es auch schon einige andere Expeditionen im Rahmen desselben Projekts mit dem Namen Ice Age, denn so eine Expedition ist oft nur Teil von jahrelangen Forschungsprojekten und wir werden jetzt gleich einen kleinen Film sehen, der die letzte Expedition etwas zusammenfasst, wo wir also auch schon ein, zwei der Personen kennenlernen, die wir gleich live auf dem Schiff sehen und wo wir etwas mehr erfahren über das Leben und die Forschungsarbeit auf dem Schiff und ganz besonders in diesem besonderen Bereich in der Nähe von Island, wo wir uns auch gleich bewegen werden.
Yes, so as Torben and Honey were just explaining, actually these expeditions do not happen in isolation. And so the current expedition that the research vessel SONNE is undertaking is called Ice Diva, which is actually an acronym that stands for the latitudinal gradients in biodiversity in the deep Atlantic, which is a little bit complicated. But there was another project before called Ice Age, which were Icelandic marine animals, genetics, and ecology. And all of these expeditions are part of larger, long-term research projects. Every expedition collects data and samples that contribute to many different studies that go on for many years after the actual expedition is at sea. And so now we're going to watch a short film that includes some of the results from the Ice Age expedition, which was completed several years ago and was the precursor expedition to the Ice Diva expedition that we'll join in a few minutes.
Okay, Film ab, bitte.
The marine underwater realm around Iceland is very special and unique. Rarely do you find such a high variety of habitats. Sitting on top of the Greenland-Iceland Faroe Ridge and the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, two vast underwater mountain chains, the marine environment around Iceland is not only a geological hotspot, but also a hotspot of biodiversity. Iceland's variety of habitats is ranging from black volcanic beaches, down over spectacular cold water coral gardens, further to hydrothermal vents, and then finally onto deep-sea abyssal plains in the Arctic and North Atlantic Ocean. A myriad of creatures calls these habitats homes. While the fauna was believed to be well understood due to work carried out during historical expeditions, recently the Ice Age project has revealed a high percentage of undescribed species and habitats.
Ice Age stands for Icelandic Marine Animals Genetics and Ecology. The international project is based on the enthusiasm of over 100 researchers from 20 nations worldwide. Furthermore, Ice Age is based on the knowledge of geology, biology, oceanography, and biochemistry in an interdisciplinary approach. We aim to become a long-term observatory of the Icelandic marine fauna.
As a modern exploration project, we are following in the footsteps of such pioneers as Alexander von Humboldt. Knowledge of benthic organisms in Icelandic waters stems from the remarkable Danish Ingolf expedition, which explored waters around the Faroe Islands, Iceland and Greenland during 4 months of the year in 1895 and 1896. This effort was the first large-scale scientific benthic exploration in the region. The very successful BioFAR project, standing for Biology of the Faroe Islands, was initiated by Norwegian and Danish marine biologists and sampled approximately 600 localities in Faroese waters. Based on BioFAR, the International Benthic Invertebrates of Icelandic Waters project, BioIce took place from 1992 to 2004, and this focused on the collection and characterization of benthic invertebrates within the Icelandic Economic Zone. Data from the BioIce project has greatly expanded our knowledge of the benthic invertebrates in this region, outlining their taxonomy, distribution, and their diversity.
The founders of BioFAR and BioIce, they created a unique initiative, especially the group of scientists around our Icelandic colleague and professor Jörundur Svavarsson, and this can be seen in the infrastructure present today on Iceland. So we have the heritage of the previous generations of scientists to build up upon the knowledge and to continue and expand it with modern techniques and to create a better understanding of the ecosystem in the future. And this is what Ice Age stands for.
Due to increasing temperatures, the region may be subject to extensive changes that influence benthic organisms. Changes in organismal distributions, community structure, and diversity are concerns in the coming years, given Iceland's location in a climatically sensitive area. Studies suggest that the complex hydrography has a high sensitivity to climate change scenarios. An inventory of the fauna sets a baseline for later reference and is of major importance for a better understanding of how marine environments respond to climate change. Classical taxonomic approaches to create species catalogues for the region are crucial. While preserving samples for molecular work during Ice Age is also an important aspect of the project sample design, something that the project's predecessors did not have. Within those running the Ice Age project, longevity and the continuation of the preceding legacy is of key importance.
I would say I have a wish.
Yeah.
And if the wish comes true, it's depending on the future and future expeditions. So I want to describe and to understand the marine biodiversity around Iceland and also understand what's going on in the adjacent waters, how Iceland is working and functioning as a natural experimental area, and what does it tell us as a story for the future. If we do have a long-term observatory, can we help to protect vulnerable marine ecosystems? This is the question we need to solve, and this is why we are working hard on future chip time applications to continue the story.
Ice Age will continue to provide a baseline knowledge for this climatically sensitive region. It is vital that such regions are understood to the fullest, as you cannot protect that which you do not know.
Well, this was an inspiring introduction to the people that we will meet shortly on the ship. So we're going to turn to expedition leaders Saskia Brix and James Taylor, who you saw in that video, to speak to us about how the last 2 weeks at sea have been going, where they are now, and what they're planning to do next.
Ja, genau. Die Spannung steigt jetzt langsam. Wir werden jetzt gleich live gehen und werden gleich den Countdown starten. Ne? Und zwar geht es gleich live. 4, 3, 2, 1 und hallo auf der Sonne, könnt ihr uns hören? Hallo auf der Sonne, könnt ihr uns hören?
Welcome to RV Sonne. I can hear you. There is even less delay than I expected in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean, south of Greenland. Willkommen an Bord von Sonne. Willkommen im grünen Hörsaal, willkommen in Frankfurt, willkommen überall in Deutschland, zum Beispiel in Husum, hallo zu Hause auf der Couch, hallo in Hamburg, hallo in Wilhelmshaven. Welcome everybody in the world watching YouTube, wherever you are in Germany, in Frankfurt, in Hamburg, or even in the very north in Husum or Munich. Welcome into the world. So, I am Saskia Briggs, as you already have seen in the Ice Age video. Now we are here live on board on the Ice Diva 2 expedition.
Yeah,
yes, I'm the chief scientist.
Yeah, and I'm James Taylor, co-chief scientist on board Ice Diva 2 and iAtlantic fellow. We are very fortunate, although we would like to have been doing this segment outside. As has been alluded to, we've had some very interesting weather, so we're in our lovely hangar. Given even the global pandemic crisis, we've been able to assemble a team of 27 people, including 4 of those iAtlantic fellows, which we will now introduce.
Yes, and in the background, because we are shortly arriving on station, you see people preparing the multinet. For example, our Ellie Kanyap, she is preparing it for taking eDNA samples, or she wants to have plankton samples, also for microplastics or different topics where we deploy this gear for.
Yeah, and down here we have Mia Schumacher from GMR. Hi, Mia. And they're currently working out to attach a hydrophone to a CDD to be able to measure sound underwater, because there are pollution in the oceans takes many forms, including that of sound.
Yes, and because we can only show a narrow window of the vessel, we have another person who wants to introduce you to life on board and how it looks like here. This is Jenny Neuhaus, and I just think we should knock on her cabin door and go to Jenny. Film up.
Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to show you our research vessel RV SONNE to show you our life on board during our Ice Diva 2 expedition in the North Atlantic Ocean. As a part of my morning routine, our first stop will be the pantry. Let's go. Hi guys.
Hi, Jenny.
Hey Jessica.
Hey.
What is there for lunch today?
Today we are having paella for lunch.
That sounds delicious as always.
I hope so.
See you at 11:30.
Yes, bye.
All right, our next stop will be downstairs in the hydroacoustic lab, and then we will check out the hangar where we have the large gear that we will deploy at our next station. Let's go. Hey Mia. Hey Kevin.
Hi Jenny.
How's it going today?
Good. We are mapping the seafloor to make sure that our gear can be deployed safely. Here we have the control setup for the multi-beam system, and here is the post-processing station where Kevin cleans the data.
That sounds very good.
It's going well today.
Cool. Okay, so see you later when we are at station.
Yeah.
See you. Bye.
Bye. Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning, Jenny.
What are you up to?
I'm preparing the multinet for the next station, and hopefully we get nice zooplankton.
I hope so too. So, see you at station then.
See you.
It's in about an hour. This is our main lab where we process the collected samples. As you can see, there's always a lot of activity here. Every person has their own responsibilities, such as data punching, sample sorting, and labeling of the collected material. This is especially important when we are back at our institute to follow up on what we have collected. Our next stop will be the wet lab in the rear of the ship, and then you can follow me out on deck. Here we are having the DEX workshop. Let me check if Volker is there. Hey, Volker. Moin. As soon as we are at station, it's going to be really busy here in this lab. But now, let me show you the outside of the ship. Hi, Doc.
Hi, Jenny. Good to meet you. I was just looking for Saskia and James. Could you please tell them there are no more seasick scientists on board, so everybody can attend the meeting?
Great. Good news. I'll tell them.
See you.
See ya. Good day, Thilo.
Hello.
How's it going today?
Oh, it's going good, thank you. The weather's on our side today.
That's great. Can you tell me when we will be on our next station?
We will reach the next station in about an hour and can start to deploy the gear.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, welcome.
Well, that means that I have to go back to work, and I thank you all very much for joining this tour in our RV SONNE, and now I will give back to my colleagues in the Senckenberg Museum in Frankfurt.
Well, thank you, Jenny, and thank you to the team on the RV SONNE for that wonderful introduction to the way that life looks on ship. And as you can tell, a lot of the life on board a research vessel is the movements in between stations, in between the coordinates where the ship stops to take biological and geological samples.
Genau, ja, vielen Dank, Jenny. Wir haben gerade schon gehört, das Schiff geht auf Station, das heißt, da wird ein Halt gemacht und die ganzen Proben werden genommen. Jenny, die wir gerade gesehen haben, ist ein iAtlantic Fellow, das heißt, sie ist Teil dieses iAtlantic Forschungsprogramms, das, wie der Name schon sagt, den Atlantik als Untersuchungsgegenstand hat. Und wir werden jetzt einen kleinen Film sehen, in dem iAtlantic noch etwas genauer vorgestellt wird.
So our friend Jenny is one of the iAtlantic Fellows, meaning that her research is funded by this iAtlantic program that we mentioned to you briefly earlier in the program. And now we'll see a short film that explains the research work in this iAtlantic international program.
Film ab.
We have been amazed at just how diverse and how interconnected these Atlantic ecosystems are. They are far more abundant, they are far more productive, and they are far more vulnerable than we ever thought before. Every time we put a camera into the deep Atlantic or we take a sample from the deep sea, we discover something new, and we mustn't forget that. That highly connected and intricately connected Atlantic Ocean is changing. Potentially the connections between ecosystems and species are being reduced. We have to understand the implications of that if we're going to have sustainable human activities in the future.
That opportunity to learn more about life in the ocean, that we may see where we are needed as young scientists.
The deep Atlantic is a precious and delicate place. It may be very large, but it's really varied. And we have to have the right science to conserve those places into the future.
And as we've seen now from the iAtlantic program, we don't have to go very far away from home to see amazing marine biodiversity and amazing deep sea ecosystems. They're right here below us in the North Atlantic Basin near to Europe.
Ganz genau, also der Film hat es schon so ein bisschen gezeigt und wir werden es gleich auch nochmal sehen. Man muss nicht ganz weit wegfahren, um wirklich tolle marine Ökosysteme kennenzulernen. Und eins davon werden wir im nächsten Clip uns etwas genauer angucken. Das sind jetzt Unterwasseraufnahmen eines Kaltwasser-Korallenriffs vor Island, zu dem Julia auch noch etwas mehr erzählen wird.
So now we'll see another short film, actually with some of the images that you've already seen when we introduced the Ice Age program to you. But we'll just briefly look at some more of these beautiful pictures of the cold water coral reef near to Iceland, where the Ice Age and now the Ice Diva expeditions are exploring.
Film ab.
So this machine is a remotely operated vehicle. The yellow box and this cable connecting it are a kind of underwater robot that's deployed from the ship to capture these images from the sea floor. And we watch them with these wonderful video screens and very complicated controls on board the ship, on board the SONNE right now. These cold water coral ecosystems are full of life, absolute incredible diversity, like this beautiful ctenophore with its rainbow sparkles, and these small coral animals you can see dotted around on the surface. We're often interested in the small things and not in the fish as marine biologists, but everyone likes squid and everyone likes octopus. This is a jellyfish, quite an extraordinary deep sea species. And a Dumbo octopus, the kind of deep sea octopus that have big fins like the ears of Dumbo the elephant. And here you can see the manipulator arm. So this is a mechanical arm of the robot, of the ROV, that can reach out to carefully take individual animals, individual biological samples, and then return them to the ship so that we can study them in more detail. And here you can see these beautiful coral reefs that form just like tropical coral reefs, but without sunlight, deep in the ocean. The shimmering water here is caused by the heat. These are geological active areas with what we call hydrothermal vents or underwater volcanic activity that's actually venting at extremely high temperatures that causes this kind of shimmering effect in the water from the turbulence. Watching these videos can be like a puzzle, just trying to find one particular creature or trying to understand everything that's living there together. And on board the ship, you'll have a whole group of scientists staring at these video cameras like it's the most fascinating movie that you've ever seen, and people getting very excited and shouting when they see their favorite species, trying to identify it or hoping that maybe they can capture it and bring it home for more study.
Okay, great. Yeah, lots of beautiful images, although you wouldn't expect those to be somewhere in the North Atlantic. Next up, we will go back to the ship and be back live. And we have something where you and especially the people online may take part as well. At the back of the program, there is another QR code that leads to an interactive map where the people from the ship mapped their location, their route, and also some of the plastic waste they found. And Mia Schumacher from the ship will give us a short introduction to this interactive map. And so we say, back to the Sonne, back to Mia, please.
Morning everyone and welcome to our Clean Ocean Trash Map. My name is Mia Schumacher and today I will guide you through the map and show you how you can use it. So what you see here is our research area. It basically encompasses the last 2 cruises we did and our current cruise now, IceDiva 2. It is an interactive map, so you can zoom in, zoom out, scroll about, move about, take a tour, take a walk, explore all the details. As you can see, there are a lot of different symbols on the map, each representing different features. If you want to have a look at the symbols, you can check them out in the legend. You just click the layer icon in the top left corner. Once the legend unfolds, you will see a list with all the icons. So, for example, our current position is indicated as the arrows, which is in the Labrador Sea right now. We have the waypoints indicated by the red dots over here. Behind the little camera icons, you will find OFOS and ROV imagery from our last 2 cruises. We also have some litter spotting and microplastics data provided by Geomar from the SONNE 297 cruise, as well as litter-based data from the Alfred Wegener Institute, which you find under the little whale icons. You can click on the icons. Once you do so, an information window will open, giving you details about the feature you clicked. When you scroll down, you will see the imagery from the OFOS dives and the ROV dives. Behind this, the idea is why we put ground truth imagery along with coordinates on an interactive map is to raise awareness and point out to the fact that we actually have a real problem of marine pollution. So that map is also meant like a legacy to this event. If you're interested, you can also download the data. You can download the ship track, which is starting immediately when you click the button. You can also download our imagery data with the coordinates. Unfortunately, this link could not be embedded, so you have to go via the Open a New tab button. So yeah, feel free to try it out. You will find the link as well as the QR code in the program and on your chair. Go ahead, try it. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mia. So it's a little bit of a delay when we're talking to the colleagues on the ship, but you can tell it's live and in person. And they look a little bit confused. So what we've learned is that the seafloor under the Atlantic is beautiful and full of life, but also already impacted by litter and plastic and the pollution of our lives here on land. So our next guest is not on board the Sonne right now, but part of a project that is connected to the work of this expedition. We're going to meet Eric Burchert from the Plastic Project.
Genau, wir werden jetzt einen kleinen Beitrag zu dem Plastic Project hören, das sich mit Plastikmüll beschäftigt. Und ich würde einfach sagen, Film ab.
Plasticity. Harvesting the marine plastisphere for novel cleaning concepts. Plasticity is a German research consortium led by the Geomar-Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research in Kiel. Collaborators in this project are the Christian Albrechts University Kiel, the University of Hamburg, the Gallup Laboratories, the Heinrich Heine University in Düsseldorf, and the RWTH Aachen University. Within plasticity, we aim to characterize the bacterial communities on marine plastic debris. We characterize communities with different microscopic, bioinformatic, and microbiological methods. Foremost, we sequence the whole genomic content of the communities that are on these plastic particles. We do this to identify biocatalysts that can help us to degrade plastics. When we find these biocatalysts, we try to optimize them and fuse them with linker peptides so that they can be incorporated on virtually any surface. These surfaces can, for example, be filtering devices that can be later on used in wastewater treatment plants to filter out microplastic pollution. Plasticity, funded by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research.
Well, and the ship is also working on this plastic pollution out in the Atlantic and what happens to plastic on the surface. So now we're going to go back to the ship and try to understand how these plastic patches impact the deep sea. And so we're going to go back to Denise and Lisa on board the SONNE. Plastic patches impact the deep sea. So we're going to go back to Denise.
Thank you, Alex, thank you, Eric, for introducing the Plasticity project. We'd like to introduce you to the two Plasticity members that we have on board here, Denise Galletha from Geomar and our very own Lisa Gärtner.
Ja, und diese beiden haben euch oder Ihnen zu Hause gleich einen kleinen Film vorbereitet, mit dem Sie erklären wollen, was Sie gerade machen und warum Sie hier an Bord sind. So, for everybody who cannot watch the activities directly here on board, our two ladies here prepared a film for you to watch what they are doing with the plastics, how do they the fixation. So please, film go.
Hey girls, you're from the Plasticity project, right?
Yes, we are.
So could you explain to me why we have a huge global problem with plastics, even though I cannot see it in the ocean?
That's a good question, Franzi. The plastics in the sea have several fates, and usually what happens is that they get fractionated into smaller pieces as small as 5 meters, the so-called microplastics. That is why you cannot see it with your plain eyes.
And did you know that there's for every size of plastic a corresponding marine animal or microorganism that can eat it? From macro to microplastics and from whales to plankton. So let's take a closer look on what we've got in the wet lab, right?
Yeah, okay. Sure. So Denise and Lisa, what do you do with your plastic samples after you collected them?
These are the kind of plastics that we can collect with a catamaran. As you can see, they come in all different size, shapes, and colors. Plasticity project goal is to characterize microorganisms that can degrade plastics.
And did you already know that as an average, a person can consume about 5 grams of plastics per week? That's equal to a credit card or this Petri dish.
Wow, that's a lot. I didn't know that. So it's great that you try to find solution for our huge global plastic problem. But it's not only the scientist's responsibility, it starts with everyone. So what are you going to do about this?
Yeah, thanks a lot again from the SONNE. Die Frage am Ende, was werden wir dagegen machen können, werden wir uns später auch noch stellen und hoffentlich auch beantworten. Jetzt haben wir aber den ersten Gast live bei uns im Zoom, der also auch in diesem Projekt Plastic mitarbeitet, in dem auch die beiden jungen Wissenschaftlerinnen arbeiten, die wir gerade gesehen haben. Und wir haben schon so ein bisschen das angedeutet gekriegt. Es geht jetzt darum, wie das Plastik, was im Meer ist, eventuell von ganz, ganz kleinen Mikroorganismen abgebaut werden könnte. Und dazu begrüße ich nochmal ganz herzlich Dr. Erik Borchert, Wissenschaftler im Plastic Project, der jetzt live bei Zoom ist. Hello, Erik. Welcome. A warm welcome here from Frankfurt, and good to see you. Can you hear us, Erik? Yeah, but we cannot hear you yet. You're probably all used to this after 2 years of Zoom conferences.
Yes, this is very typical Zoom experience.
It's not a problem.
I can hear some noises from the sound booth in the back, so I'm sure that they'll have this resolved soon. Oh dear.
Well, the connection with the ship was perfectly fine, as you've all noticed.
We focused all of our energy on the most difficult technological problem and neglected the common Zoom call just to another lab within Germany.
In der Zwischenzeit können wir vielleicht auch schon auf das tolle Modell hinweisen, was hier vorne steht von der Sonne. Wenn Sie möchten, können Sie später vielleicht einen kleinen Blick drauf werfen. Ansonsten auch jederzeit hier in der Ausstellung des Museums zu sehen, wo wir außerdem einen sehr spannenden Bereich zum Thema Meeresforschung aufgebaut haben, wo all die ganzen Geräte und das Equipment gezeigt wird, was wir hier auch schon in den Filmen gesehen haben. Genau.
Yeah, when Jenny took us around on the ship, it was quite extraordinary to be able to see all of the different parts, including going up to the bridge. I think actually, even when you're on board a ship, it's a little bit difficult to understand where you are within the map of this complicated three-dimensional structure that becomes your home at sea. So in fact, even when you're on board a ship and walking around, it's very useful to have maps or a model like this one to understand how to get from one part of the ship to another inside the little rabbit warren that is the multi-layered construction of an ocean-going research vessel. So we might hear a little bit more about plasticity. It would be nice if we can get some audio from Erik. Hello.
Oh, excellent.
Now it's working. Perfect.
Maybe a bit louder for the directors?
Yeah, I can try.
It might not be on your side, Erik. I think we can adjust the sound on our side.
Okay.
So we wanted to ask you a couple of questions about the Plastic project. So could you remind us, in the film we talked about the fact that plastic degradation is a community project or a community effort. Could you explain what that means within your project?
Yeah, so we have a lot of groups working on this problem. So we have collaborators in Hamburg, Aachen, in Düsseldorf. Other collaborators here besides the GEOMA itself. So it's a German-based project. And we could also do this research probably on a European level because there are so many aspects to plastic research that we could really a lot of different people.
But your research is about using enzymes and bacteria to try to break down plastic pollution that already exists. Do you think that this is a complete solution to the problems that we have? Are there any, or is it only perhaps part of the overall solution?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to answer honestly and say that it's not the complete answer to the problem itself, because we can work on plastic that will now throw in. So what is already in the ocean, we will never get that back. So we really have to work on the stuff, or we have to work on that not more plastic is entering the oceans. So our enzymes are probably more suitable to be used in wastewater treatment plants rather than.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We're having still a little bit of problems with the audio, But we're very, very happy to have had you. I think we're going to hear even more about the problems of plastic pollution and possible solutions to it as we go along this evening. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay. Yeah, we hope for the future Zoom conferences we will have better audio. But now we go on to the next project that is also involved. Another project from GEOMA, the HOTMIC project. HOTMIC stands for Horizontal and Vertical Oceanic Distribution, Transport and Impact of Microplastics. And if I might just try to put that in my words, it describes how plastic moves around on the surface of the water, how it sinks inside the water, and where it stays down there and what happens with it. Wir hören jetzt also einen kurzen Beitrag von Aaron Beck aus dem HOTMIC Project. Er ist der Leiter des Projekts am GEOMA und in diesem Projekt geht es insbesondere um die Bewegung von Mikroplastik im Ozean, wie es also sich auf der Oberfläche bewegt, wie es herabsinkt und deswegen sind wir mal gespannt auf den nächsten Film. Film ab!
My name's Aaron Beck. I'm a scientist at the GeoMar Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research in Kiel. And we're part of a large EU project called HOTMIC that looks at the oceanic distribution and transport of microplastics. Something like 5 to 13 million tons of plastic debris enters the ocean every year. And a lot of that debris accumulates in central ocean gyres, such as the Central North Atlantic, which is our project focus area. But more than 95% of the plastic material that's estimated to enter the oceans can't be accounted for. So the real question is, where is the missing plastic and how did it get there? So to try and answer that question in HOTMIC, we conduct field expeditions and collect field samples from the surface ocean all the way to the deep sea. In surface waters, we tow nets such as this catamaran trawl to collect floating microplastics. And even in the open North Atlantic Ocean with this clear blue water, the nets show that there's quite a lot of plastic debris that's actually floating in the surface water. And you can see that in the sample here in the center of the picture. One of the challenges of doing this sampling is always to separate the microplastics from all of the natural organic matter, such as these large rafts of sargasso weed. When you're on a ship, it can sometimes be easy to forget that there's several kilometers of water below you. But to collect samples throughout the water column, we use devices like this Niskin rosette, which has bottles that can be closed remotely to collect 10 to 20 liters of seawater at different depths. And we also use these in situ pumps, which filter particles from several thousand liters of seawater. We also tow nets horizontally in the water column, like these bongo nets, and in the center this multi-net, which has multiple nets that can be opened and closed at different depths. And on the right-hand side, you see sort of a typical sample from one of these net tows. And the vast majority of the material that we collect is biological material, so zooplankton, juvenile fish, and so forth. And this really highlights the challenge of trying to clean up the plastic problem once the debris is already in the ocean. How do you separate the plastic debris from all of the naturally occurring particles? We also collect sediment samples using devices like this multi-core or the box core in the center. And the image on the right-hand side shows the scientists collecting subsamples from one of these large box sediment cores. And we use towed camera systems to make observations of macro debris on the seafloor. The images on the right show some pictures that we took about a year ago in the North Atlantic, around 3,000 to 5,000 meters water depth. And you can see a piece of plastic bubble wrap and a plastic bag and an easily recognizable beer can that we observed on the seafloor. Of course, projects such as HOTMIC that are doing work in the deep sea and open ocean really rely on oceanographic platforms such as RV SONNE. The challenge of conducting this kind of research and of collecting samples, for example, at 5 kilometers water depth in the open ocean, is really extraordinary. And having the instrumentation to do it, as well as the expertise of the captain and crew, is really critical for us to get the samples that we need in order to answer the questions that we want to address. The overarching aim of the HOTMIC project is to try to understand how plastics behave in the ocean and where they ultimately end up. And we also have the goal of using that to try and understand what the source of most of the plastics are in the ocean. The data that we collect go into global databases such as LitterBase, and also into global predictive models that try to understand the distribution and transport of plastics, and to try and quantify the sources of the plastics that are entering the ocean. And all of that has the ultimate goal of trying to manage the plastic problem on land before it ever actually enters the ocean. Thanks very much for your attention.
Themes that we've heard a couple of different ideas, such as these different kinds of sampling nets. You've heard about a multi-net earlier in one of the other videos, and later we'll see the multi-corer and how it works. But another theme is how the waste that we produce on land, or as land organisms ourselves, often ends up in the ocean. And even our own research expeditions, unfortunately, can produce litter and waste. And so now we're going to hear about how the RV SONNE in particular, and this expedition, is trying to reduce our impact, or the impact that our research has on the oceans. So one example of this is water bottles. We all know about single-use plastic water bottles as a major source of plastic pollution that we try to avoid. But on a ship, how do you end up with enough fresh water and trying to reduce the amount of plastic? So now we'll go back to the ship.
To paraphrase the rhyme of the ancient mariner, here in the North Atlantic we have water, water everywhere, not any drop to drink.
Please continue.
Yeah. So on the SONNE we have been introduced to a reusable water system, because in previous times we had to bring the water with us from shore. This obviously was done in plastic containers, which are not good for the environment, and something we are going to try and put forward, and the SONNE has been actively contributing towards. So currently we have a film that we're going to show you about how the SONNE right now is tackling this problem.
But James, are you thirsty?
Yes, please. Can I have some water?
So, grab one of these water bottles.
Ja,
und im nächsten Film werden wir euch zeigen, wie das Trinkwasser auf der Sonne hergestellt wird. Dazu schalten wir Film ab.
Produzieren diese Flaschen nicht eine Menge Müll? Ich bin ja nicht der Einzige, der Wasser trinkt. Es sind ja viele Leute hier auf dem Schiff. Und was ist mit dem ganzen Müll, der dadurch anfällt? Wo lagern die das? Gibt es dafür nicht eine bessere Alternative? Moin Tim.
Moin Freddy. Ich bin auch gleich mal.
Ja, klar. Sag mal Tim, wie macht ihr das mit dem Wasser?
Wir produzieren Trinkwasser aus dem uns umgebenden Seewasser hier.
Aus dem Seewasser? Das ist Seewasser?
Das ist kein Seewasser mehr. Das ist durch Membran geleitet worden. Der osmotische Druck wird da überwunden. Und eben aus einer Tonne Seewasser werden dann 300 Liter Trinkwasser hergestellt bei uns. Und in unsere Tanks weitergeleitet. Da können wir etwa 200 Kubikmeter Trinkwasser speichern. Damit wird dann das ganze Schiff versorgt und eben auch hier die Zapfstellen.
Und wie lange braucht ihr, um 1 Kubikmeter Trinkwasser herzustellen?
Das war eine Stunde ungefähr. Ja.
Und über die ganze Seefahrt, was wird da so verbraucht?
Also pro Tag sind das insgesamt 8 bis 9 Kubikmeter, das Ganze mal 30. Vorher waren es immer ja, so etwa 2000 Flaschen, Plastikflaschen pro Reise, also pro Monat. Was wir jetzt einsparen können hiermit.
Boah, das brauche ich auch für zu Hause.
Brauchen wir alle. Bis später.
Bis später. Moin Jungs, lasst mal einen trinken. Ich gebe einen aus.
Jo. Oh, danke schön.
Danke dir.
Danke.
Prost Jungs.
Prost,
Jungs.
Yeah, as you see, the guys on the Sonne try to be part of the solution, and so can you. And now we have Eric back with us. Eric, you found a headset. That's excellent. Welcome back. Can you hear us?
Thank you for having me again. Yes, I can hear you. I hope you can hear me too now.
I think it's much better. Eric, I understood you even brought a small presentation of 2 slides. Is that true, that you want to share with us? Or?
I had another presentation, yes. But what we could also do is talk about one of the Slido questions instead, if you want to. Because there was a question if we can get rid of the plastics that's already in the ocean, because I guess it was not really clear from my previous reply.
Yeah, feel free to answer this question. So if it will be possible to get all the plastic out of the ocean at some point.
Yeah, I mean, most people probably know of the Ocean Cleanup Project, which is a good effort in removing big plastic pieces. But what is missing in this project is that the amount of really micro nanoplastics and so on is much larger, and we will never get rid of this anymore. So what we need to do is really to prevent plastics from entering the ocean, and therefore we need to start to really collect all the plastics that is produced on land. So, but in respect to all the plastics that's already in the ocean, I cannot be optimistic that we get rid of that. So, yeah, it's not a nice message, but that's how it is.
So the effort on the Sonne is still a good way to deal with this. So reduce plastic use on land, and if you have to use it, recycle it very well so it doesn't end up in little pieces in the ocean, right?
Yes, and maybe furthermore, doing research on alternatives to plastics that actually degrade in the environment. Because when the plastic were invented, they were really, the goal was to find something that it's not degrading without keeping in mind what is happening to it then after it has been used. So now we probably need to shift to something that is more sustainable and also something that can be easier degraded, even if it reaches the environment.
Right. Excellent. Thanks for being back with us, Eric. And yeah, thanks for joining for this event. I think, I think we get to other scientists that are with us on Zoom. Now, some colleagues of yours, I could say. Now we meet up with people from DOSI, from the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative. And first up, we have a short film that will introduce this project, the DOSI project, to us. And please, Film ab.
Hello, my name's Maria Baker from the University of Southampton, and I'm one of the co-leads for the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative. So what is DOSI? Well, DOSI works to advance science-based stewardship of the deep ocean by informing national, regional and global deep sea policy through independent science. DOSI was established in 2013 with an inaugural meeting in Mexico City with just 24 participants and has now grown to a transdisciplinary network of more than 2,000 individuals from 103 countries. We have a small core team, but we collaborate widely across sectors, borders and disciplines. Our work at the Science Policy Interface is actioned by 10 working groups, which focus on areas such as deep sea bed mining, climate change, fisheries, offshore energy and others. So DOSI has a vision of healthy, resilient deep ocean ecosystems able to contribute to the wider Earth system through their sustainable and equitable management informed by independent knowledge. So in order to achieve this, we need to advance science, we need to inform and influence policy, and we need to enhance capacity and collaboration. DOSI network members are uniquely positioned to advance deep sea science that's relevant to policy. We have literally hundreds of deep sea scientists in our network who are working to fill knowledge gaps in crucial deep sea ecosystem science and processes. We're also uniquely positioned to inform and influence policy. We're an established participant in science-led policy deliberations. We're official observers at many high-level policy processes at the UN, for example. And we also are in an excellent position to enhance capacity and collaboration by leveraging our network to boost scientific capacity and to foster a global generation of deep sea stewards. So what is it we're trying to achieve? Well, firstly, to raise stakeholder awareness of the value of the deep ocean upon which all life depends by providing deep sea knowledge and expertise. Also to empower scientists and others globally to engage in these complex ocean policy processes through improved understanding and facilitation. Finally, to ensure that environmental policies do protect the deep ocean because it comprises 95% of the living space on Earth. So what do we do to achieve our aims? Well, in a nutshell, DOSI network members deliver deep sea research knowledge at key policy meetings to ensure that environmental policies protect the deep ocean. We also facilitate knowledge exchange to improve scientists' understanding of deep ocean science and related policy processes. Finally, we plan to partner with communication experts across the world to ensure public awareness of the crucial services our deep ocean provides and why science-informed policy is so important. If you visit our website, you can find out so much more about the many working groups that we have and the details of the important work that they do to ensure that our deep ocean ecosystems are at the forefront of ocean policy deliberations. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, so I hope you have a better idea what DOSI is and what DOSI does. And before we continue to chat with the people from DOSI, just one more reminder that you all might use the Slido tool and bring your voice in and ask your questions for the final polls and for the final Question Round. Also noch einmal der Hinweis, auch an Sie hier im Saal, gerne den QR-Code auf den letzten Seiten des Programms scannen und nutzen, um damit an den Slido-Umfragen teilzunehmen und auch hier Ihre Fragen und Ihre Meinung reinzubringen. And now we go back to Zoom, and on Zoom we have one of the scientists from DOSI. She is the Deputy Head of the Group on Pollution and Debris. Please welcome Nelia da Costa Mestre from the Center for Marine and Environmental Research of the University of Algarve in Portugal. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being there. So I'm one of the co-leads, this working group on pollution and debris that is part of the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative, the DOSI. So it's me, and it's Shamik Dasgupta. He's based in China. And also Lucy Woodall from the UK. So it's the three of us. You can read more about the dosy pollution and debris, what we do. So basically, we try to make this, take the information from science to transfer it to policy making or to advise for future regulations. So that's basically the main rule. So for these sessions, we invited two specialists. I think you are going to introduce them now. And that's it. I hope you enjoy it. And if you have questions, please add them to the YouTube, and we try to answer you. If not live, we'll try to reply writing on the YouTube chat, for example.
Right, great. So we actually already have some questions from the audience that are being brought to you on Zoom via the chat. I guess I saw one that asked if it's actually a solution to gather all the plastic waste that is swimming on the surface of the ocean with big nets or something like this to get it from the surface, and or if this brings more harm to the ecosystems by catching other creatures that are swimming near the surface. So do you?
Well, it's a good question. In my opinion, I think it can be do more harm than benefit, but I don't know if one of our panelists, Alice or Martin, if they want to reply to that question.
Sure, I can do. And hello to everyone out there from Trondheim in Norway. It's really fantastic, like seeing this true international event here. So there has been a lot of attention to the ocean cleanup, right? And they collected a lot of money for like building those huge floating devices to collect plastic litter. A very positive message has been sent to us by that project, so we can clean up the mess that we've created, right? And that's, I think, like something that we need to send out to people, hope indeed. But technically, I think it's very challenging, and it has negative impacts on all the creatures living out there in the oceans. It's technically challenging because plastic is very dispersed on the ocean surface. And as we've heard before, only about 5% of the plastic litter is actually floating. Most of it is really like below the surface. And I think we would need to put so many resources and energy in like collecting these again, that the negative impacts of that would really outweigh the benefits. And it's kind of a sad truth, but I think that is something that we just need to realize, acknowledge. We're living in the Anthropocene, and plastic pollution is the visible thing about the Anthropocene. We have polluted nature on a global scale, and we need to deal now with the consequences.
Thank you, Martin. From what I understand, you're a professor at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, and your field of expert is the toxicity of plastic. And this is something, I guess, that we haven't touched yet. So we've been talking about where the plastic is and how it gets there, but the actual harm that it does to us and the species in the sea is something that we haven't really talked about. So maybe you could, in one or two examples, explain why the plastic is actually that bad for organisms.
Really, in a nutshell, I think like there is like three major negative impacts that plastic pollution has when you look at it from a toxicological perspective. Large plastic items will result in what we call entanglement. So there's a lot of ghost nets out there that keep on fishing for decades, and then just marine species get entangled and die in these. But more toxicologically, we are worried about the chemicals that are associated with all the plastic debris that is floating out there. So there's a lot of chemicals that we're actually using in plastics, plasticizers, for instance, that make them like soft and colorful, etc. But also chemicals that attach to plastic pollution that could be released once an animal is ingesting it. And the other negative impact we are worried about is like physical impacts, right? So when a fish, for instance, swallows smaller pieces of microplastics, they will eat less food, so their energy intake is reduced. These smaller pieces of plastics, we call microplastics or nanoplastics, could do physical damage to the intestine, to the digestive tract of the animal, etc. And that's all something where research now is exploding. So we're seeing like really many new like publications, a lot of data is created. It's a very, very exciting field to work in at the moment. And I think we're just starting to scratch on the surface on understanding what like the toxicity of plastics really is, but then also the larger ecological implications. Think about rivers covered with plastic pollution. There will be ecological consequences of that as well. So we're beginning to understand the impacts. We are really not there yet to really quantify the impacts on a global scale. But I think that kind of lack of knowledge or gaps in our knowledge cannot prevent us from acting right now.
Thanks a lot. And one thing that interests me personally, because sometimes I also like to eat seafood, and we've heard before that the average person might consume a certain amount of plastic per week, and just by regular eating. So is this only a problem with the stuff from the ocean, or can that be said about all food also from land? And so is the microplastic everywhere in our food? Is that the thing?
It's a very weird narrative that we're having, right? So we're putting plastics in nature, plastics will move to the oceans, then fish will eat the plastic, and then it travels back to our dinner plates. And I've always struggled with that kind of narrative, because like if you think about it, everything that we're eating, or most of what we're eating, is packed in plastic. So what we are really concerned about is all the microplastics and plastic chemicals that are coming from food packaging. They don't need to go through the oceans and through the fish to come back to us. We're in a much more intimate and close contact with plastics on a daily basis. And I think that's what we should really, like, first of all, investigate, but also be quite aware and concerned about.
And even dust, you know, like the fibers from our clothing can contain plastic, and we're more likely to eat that, perhaps, just by accident. So we have one other DOSI expert scientist who's here with the panel that we haven't heard from yet. We have Alice Zhu, who's working on her PhD research in the University of Toronto. Perhaps we can have Alice give us a quick introduction to her research and her work. Hello, Alice. Welcome.
Hi. Nice to see everyone here today. Would you like me to present some slides or just talk?
I think if you have something prepared, it would be really nice if you could share it with us. Please.
Okay,
feel free.
Sounds good. I kind of made it a little bit too long, I think, but I'll go through it really quickly. Very quickly, I'm a PhD student studying the sources, transport mechanisms, and fate of plastic pollution in the environment. I'm part of the Chelsea Rockman's lab at the University of Toronto, and as well as the U of T trash team. So we do a lot of public outreach. So the importance of studying plastic pollution in the deep ocean, you already heard from many of our speakers today, so I won't spend too much time on this, but the harmful effects of derelict fishing gear and how plastic can change the chemistry of the ocean over time, including through the leaching of carbon. And also, it's important to understand where plastic pollution ends up in the ocean because it informs risk assessment, remediation efforts, and potential sources that are leading to plastic inputs. Specifically for my research, I'm building a model to predict the abundance of plastic pollution on the ocean floor globally. And I'm using literature data to build this model. So here you see a map of the different ways in which scientists have sampled plastic pollution on the ocean floor up until 2020. And the reason why this type of research is important is because if you know what the concentrations of plastic are on the ocean floor, then you can help scientists to determine what concentrations of plastic to feed fish and other organisms when they're doing their ecotoxicology experiments. And places with high abundance of plastic and that coincide with vulnerable ecosystems can be treated as priorities for remediation efforts. And finally, my model investigates various anthropogenic variables that may influence the abundance of plastic, including fishing effort, shipping intensity, etc. And depending on which sources are most important, it can lead to management actions. There are both challenges and opportunities to studying plastic within the deep ocean. As some of our panelists already mentioned, the challenge is that field sampling as well as cleanup efforts, they can be effort intensive as well as destructive to deep sea ecosystems. And also the methods and reporting of plastic pollution on the ocean floor can be more harmonized or similar. So right now, if you look at the literature, there are many, many different ways in which scientists report plastic pollution data, and we need to make sure that they're comparable. So we're comparing apples to apples. But there are lots of opportunities for research and solutions, opportunities for innovation. So making sure that the field sampling is less destructive, as well as increasing the collaboration opportunities and funding, which really helps because there's growing awareness around environmental issues. Specifically, so in our lab, we do a lot of public outreach. We do a lot of policy work. So I'll just share some examples. My supervisor really encourages us to write policy briefs to inform the public and governments about our research. So this is an example of a policy brief written about plastic pollution in the Great Lakes. And she encourages us to speak at meetings like the UN and write articles for the general public instead of going through the media first, because we're the best communicators of our own science. And my colleagues have worked with industry to measure pellet spills from industry and work with communities to install what are called washing machine filters in entire towns to evaluate their effectiveness. And we also work with society and local authorities, such as the deployment of sea bins in Lake Ontario to capture litter. And finally, we also do a lot of education in public schools, community cleanups, and we have a cheat sheet for talking to the public about how to, what microplastics are and solutions to microplastics. So how does this apply to the deep ocean? I think a lot of what we do is also applicable to deep ocean remediation efforts. So obviously the cleanup would look different from on land. But these are some examples, and also mitigation, I think, helps to, as Martin said, cleaning up the plastic, and Eric said, cleaning up the plastic near the source is much more helpful than, or preventing the plastic from entering the ocean in the first place is much more important than remediation efforts after it's entered the ocean. And I think there's many opportunities for collaboration with stakeholders to try to prevent plastic from entering the ocean at all. And we need greater awareness and communication with the public, politicians, and especially young people. So that's all I had.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alice. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
I guess we have to move on in our schedule, but thanks a lot to all the guys from DOSI who took the time to show the important work they do. And with the next bit, we're going back to the ship. And hopefully get to know a bit of the methods they're applying.
So this was another piece of equipment, actually, that we saw briefly in one of the other presentations. I think our colleagues on the ship are going to explain to us about the multicorer, a device that they use for sampling the sediment on the seabed. Can we go back to the ship?
Hi, my name is Alex Kienecke and I'm a scientist of the Institute Senckenberg am Meer in Wilhelmshaven. During the expedition ISDIVA 2, I'm responsible for the multiple corer. The multiple corer is a device that samples undisturbed sediment cores from the deep sea bottom. And these undisturbed cores are perfectly suitable for the study of microscopic organisms or, for instance, to analyze the content of microplastic pollutants in the deep sea. The multiple corer consists of the support frame and a movable head. In this model, the MC1220, there are 20 plexiglass tubes mounted to the head. The whole device is attached to the winch of the research vessel, and then it's lowered down to the deep sea floor. First, the foot plates of the frame will touch the ground, and then the head is lowered further, slowly, until the tubes will penetrate into the sediment of the deep sea. And this is supported by a number of 48 lead weights. When the multiple corer is heaved again, a mechanism is triggered, which will close simultaneously the upper and lower openings of the 20 tubes. And thereby, the sediment samples are secured during the long way up through the water column and back on deck again. Before we can deploy the device, there's lots of preparatory work to be done. A whole team of scientists have to mount the holdings for the tubes. We have to insert the tubes into the holdings. We have to tense the cups. And finally, we have to attach a security net. Once the bridge is giving the signal that the planned position has reached, we are ready to go. The multiple corer is heaved over the side of the vessel, and then the long journey down to the deep sea begins. And we all keep our fingers crossed that we will gain a number of 20 undisturbed cores of deep sea sediment.
Hi, I'm Annie, and I am Atlantic Follow. We want to complete the map of biodiversity of megafauna from Northwest Atlantic Ocean. Here we want to compare two different approaches of eDNA analysis and metabarcoding. And for this, we got the sediment and water samples from multicorer, and we bring it here, do the DNA extractions, and the rest of the things, that is qPCR and next generation sequencing using Illumina platform, we will do it at home in Senckenberg am Meer in Wilhelmshaven.
All right. Excellent. And now, since we are quite far in the program, we're now going to have a really short look at the results from the Slido polls that you all answered. And for that, we have Marie Heidenreich live via Zoom. Welcome, Marie.
Hello, everyone. Hello from Rostock, which is on the Baltic Sea coast, not on the Atlantic. So let's start with this very quickly. I would post the link in YouTube again very quickly. And if you can't see this link, you can go to slido.com and enter the code Clean Ocean in one word. The code is Clean Ocean. And there you can see popping up this first test question where we already have 30 replies. The question is, have you been swimming in the ocean in the past year? And we have a small majority, it's a 2/3 majority for yes, and 1/3 of you haven't been swimming in the ocean in the past year. I hope that this is a nice replacement, this being live on our research vessel SONNE. So we will get started with the first real poll, which is, to what extent do you feel responsible for plastic pollution? And for this, we have 3 options: not at all, a little, and very much. So far, we have 3 replies: 2 for a little, one for very much. Now we have 6 replies, and you can still answer to this one. The count goes up, and now's the last chance to answer this question. So if you haven't done it yet, please answer to this question very quick. We now have 16 replies and a growing majority for very much. 61% of you feels very much responsible, only 37 a little responsible, but none of you feels not at all responsible for plastic pollution. Let's continue with the next question. This is, what do you think is the biggest threat to the deep ocean in the future? Is it climate change? Is it fisheries? Is it deep sea mining? Is it pollution? Is it oil and gas exploitation? Or is it something completely else? We have 8 replies so far. The majority, half of you, says it's climate change. So the climate crisis is the biggest threat to the deep ocean. In your opinion, we also have 36% voting for pollution. We have fisheries, deep sea mining, and this seems to be a very good choice of options, because only very few of you says it's other. And we have 29 replies, so we will quickly continue with the next question. Last chance to answer this one. We have a shared answer now for our 4 options. Now we have 35, and let's continue with the next one. How much do you think you know about plastic pollution in the deep ocean, taking into account what you heard just now from all the scientists here aboard research vessel SONNE and in the Zoom session? Moderate amount and a little. None of you knows nothing, so that's also quite a success. Let's see, we have 30 answers again. So let's moderate amount, a lot, and a little the answers here. Let's continue with the next one. What can you do to reduce plastic pollution in the oceans? So here you get to write your own answer, and we are very excited to see those answers. So take some time and write something in this text field very quick. We have use less plastic. We again have use less plastic on land and reduce my plastic waste. So yeah, that sounds already a lot like what the scientists said earlier. Reduce all plastic, cutting out plastic whenever I can. Use less and recycle correctly. Okay, buy groceries that are not wrapped in plastic. Not so easy sometimes, but of course a great idea. Buy local, yes. Okay, so thank you so much for those replies. And we continue with the last question, which is, what can industry and the government do to reduce plastic pollution in the oceans? So this one is not addressing you, but it's actually addressing industry and the government. Do you have any ideas for them? What they can do? Buy less stuff. So if this is directed at the industry, produce less. Geht nur über Verbote, so only rules and laws will do it. No blah blah. I like those answers a lot. And as you can see, they differ a lot, because when you have twice the same answer, then it will appear bigger. But you all have your own idea what to do. Let's see, laws is there again. Find new solutions, like probably alternatives to plastic, as we said earlier. Oh, act now, yes, that's a great one. Listen to science. Yes, that's also awesome. So I will leave this open a little longer, and so you can still write something in there. And we will now answer to some of the questions you posed in the Q&A slot. The first question was concerning the dates of the current cruise, and Saskia Brix, the chief scientist on research vessel SONNE, answered to this one, and she wrote, it started on November 4th and it will end on December 9th. Then there was a question concerning how many vegetarians are there on board, and the answer, again by Saskia, is 17 out of 27 scientists, so that's quite a lot. Concerning the removal of plastic in the ocean, Erin Beck from Geomar completely agrees with what Eric Borchert said earlier. It is unlikely that we can clean up much of the plastic waste that is already in the ocean. The solution is to manage the waste on land before it ever enters the ocean. So that is mirroring quite well what you said earlier too in the Slido poll. How many hours do you work on the ship every day, and what do you do in your free time? Eric Borchert says the workload really depends on your project and if you're on a research station or on transit. So it can be anything from a couple of hours to almost the whole day. And from RV SONNE, I assume this is Chief Scientist Saskia Brix writing, work hours per day are in shifts. People do 12 hours maximum and then 12 hours pause. Depending on the role on the vessel, also 4-hour shifts, for example, the navigation officers or decks crew. And for your leisure time, there is a library, a fitness room, and a sauna, but no swimming pool like on the German icebreaker Polarstern. Is there one warm meal per day on the ship or more? And I guess the Germans eat a lot of bread and sausages was another question. Eric Borchert says you can have 3 warm meals every day because the crew and scientists work in shifts. From my personal experience, I can say there's a fridge which is available 24/7 and which is very popular because you get hungry when you stay up all night waiting for the ROV and your samples getting back to the ship. And Saskia Brix says sausages are important on a German vessel. Pancakes and fresh fruits are also very popular from my experience. We now have 24 replies back in the Slido poll, and we have a big develop alternatives and invest in recycling as something that government and industry can do. And with this, I would like to hand over to Frankfurt again.
Thank you, Marie. Thanks for presenting the results, and thanks for answering some of the questions. Very nice. And now we have the chance to ask the scientists back on the ship all the questions that we have in mind. And some were already answered, but we brought some ourselves that might also be of interest that we collected earlier. And so we say back to the Sonne. Hallo.
Ja, zurück im Konferenzraum. Hier treffen wir uns für unsere science meeting. So this is the conference room of the vessel. Mia already explained the map on the screen in the background. So everybody who was active from each project in the films, or some of the people you see here sitting with me. Wir sind hier eine kleine Runde, die jetzt alle Projekte an Bord repräsentieren, und wir freuen uns darüber, wenn ihr uns Fragen stellt. So please ask us questions and we try to answer as correct as possible.
Well, we heard that sausages are important on a German research vessel, but I would argue that cake is even more important. What do you think?
Well, definitely yes. Absolutely. So, definitely yes.
I'm working on both German and British vessels, and I can say the cake fraction and the gâteau fraction on a German vessel is bigger, but on a German vessel you have less biscuits. So if you're a biscuit fan, like Jenny here, she had to go to our steward and ask if we could have some biscuits, and she succeeded.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and also if you work 24/7, like in different shifts, people are hungry all the time. So it really depends on the matter when you are working. And sweets, if you're tired, sweets are giving energy. So even the vegetarian sausages are also vegetarian sausages. As we have heard, we have 17 out of 27 as vegetarian. So the most important people on the vessel are the cooks and the kitchen to keep everybody in a good mood and to keep everybody happy, especially when we have wind and snowstorm and sometimes wavy conditions, people will get hungry.
Thanks a lot. Maybe we start with one very basic question away from the food. How does your expedition continue, and how long will you be on the ship?
Well, I take this question as well, or give it over to you. You take it?
Yeah, as you guys have previously said, we will be on the ship until December the 9th. We are arriving on station imminently, and we'll be able to deploy a full set of gear. Then this will last 3-4 days, depending on the weather conditions. And after that, we will move further south to alongside the east coast of America there. And we will get our next station perhaps after 4 or 5 days transit. We've been fighting a lot of weather on board, but everybody is in good spirits, and we continue on and hope to continue to press and do the science that we're here to do.
Excellent, thanks. We have another question from Slido. I don't know who can answer this best. I will just pose it to you guys. What was your highlight of the expedition so far?
Your highlight. So I think this question is going to Pedro. What is your highlight?
For the moment, my highlight was the Northern Lights. So we had the very nice Aurora Borealis, polar lights, in Iceland and also in the Faroe Islands, and we could really enjoy them, but it was very cold and very windy, but this was very fantastic.
Yeah, actually, especially if you have to work during the night and the whole sky is green. So working and spotting lights.
Well, that sounds incredible. I know from having been at sea that often the best stars that you can ever see in your life are the stars that you see in a clear sky when you're at sea in the middle of the ocean.
We have another question coming in via Slido that brings us back a little bit to the food topic. What help do seasick crew members get? And are you guys seasick at all, or are you all used to being on the ship that you don't get seasick any longer?
Yeah, this brings us back to Jenny's walk through the vessel, where exactly she met the doctor posing that question.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so we've had some waves, and I mean, when you start a cruise and then you just start with lots of waves, then of course people feel a little seasick, but then we have food all the time, as we've mentioned, and then everyone just takes care of one another and checks on one another, and after a couple of days, things just get normal. And we say in German, we have this word einschaukeln, and then everyone is just feeling comfortable with the waves. And by the point of now, I think nobody's seasick anymore. And as the doc said, everyone is back on track.
Yeah, and on board, we have obviously the doctor, as people have mentioned, and we also have a medical room and department. You go in there and it's stocked a lot better than most of your local pharmacies. So we're very lucky to be able to deal with a whole manner of things on board.
All right, thanks. So by now everybody is eingeschaukelt, so to say. We have two questions or input from Marius. First, he says that it looks like a very cool school trip to him. And then the second question would be, is alcohol allowed on the ship? And how much can you bring or drink?
Well, if you work, no alcohol. So this is dangerous if you're in working conditions. The ship is moving. So yeah. It's definitely a topic which you need to deal with and you need to think about. But work, no alcohol.
That sounds very good. And another question, we might come back to the plastic later, but this is more about the social life on board. So if you knew each other, or if it's a whole new community each time you go on the trip, and how you are connected.
I think I would like to place this question to Denise, because she's joining us for this expedition.
Yeah, so this is my first time on SONNE, and it has been really nice because, I mean, the project has been going on for several years, so most of the team, they already know before this cruise. But for me and others, few others, has been our first experience on board. And I have to say that it's a pretty nice experience because, as Jenny said, we are all taking care of each other. So it has been super welcoming, really supportive, and I am really happy to be here and be with this team.
Yeah, and as was referenced in the previous question, the big school trip, we might have the core team of the Ice Age and Ice Diva projects on board, but we have a constant rotation of master's students, PhD students that we bring on board. So you're always meeting interesting and wonderful new people like Denise here. And it's really, that's one of the key highlights of being able to go to sea, to get to meet new people, understand their research, and work alongside these fine people.
And I think it's worth saying that when you're at sea on this relatively small ship with a relatively small number of people, you get to know people in a way that you never would if you were just working in the same office with them on land.
Okay.
Actually, yes. And actually, especially with Corona conditions, as you see, we're sitting here like normal, as if we are out of this Corona influence. We were all tested and we all had to self-quarantine before we started to be on board. So after 2 weeks, it's enormous socializing. Yeah, so this is a very special time if we think about returning back home and we watch the news and what's happening within Germany. So yeah, but for you, what do you feel, for example, Mia?
About Corona, I definitely agree with you, Saskia. We are blessed being on this little Corona-free island. But still, it's, yeah, you connect different to people. There's a difference if you're in the office and going home at the end of your workday, or if you stay and meet the same people again at dinner and after that. So it's a great community that established here, and we work very closely together. Yeah.
I think what is also very important that some of us have been on this ship or gone with the same group of crew for a couple of times. So some of the crew members you have met last year, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so it's a big hello when you come back on and you're going, when did I see you last? Was it last year? No, it was on Merian or on Meteor, one of the other ships that sometimes have the same crew on board. So it's a big community. It's not the scientists and the crew. It's a mixed group of people socializing together.
Yes, right. I absolutely agree on that. So you grow together as a team, and if you work on the vessel, you're depending on the skills of each other. As a scientist, we are guests here on board. The crew, for them, it's their home, and they do this all the year. And it's always good if you feel back home and accepted also as a scientific crew.
It sounds really good, and it sounds like an environment where you can be really productive and do a lot of work. And so I would like to come back to the topic of the evening, the microplastics, and we brought some questions with us. Maybe a basic one. If you find plastic waste during your expedition, can you identify the source of the plastic, so where it comes from and what was the source of the plastic? Is that possible?
So this is definitely a question for one of our people working in the Plastic and hot mix projects. So Denise, would you like to answer from the vessel?
Yes, of course. I think it's a little bit tricky to actually, just by seeing the plastic particle that we collect, to identify the source or either the type of plastic, because the plastics in the ocean, they get fragmented, and usually what we do is like we take the sample with us and we can perform some analysis afterwards to actually get to know which type of plastic we are talking about, we collect already. So I think it's possible, but not just by looking at the sample.
Okay, thank you. Another question which connects to that one would be all the rubbish that you see and that you find. Do you even care to pick it up and take it with you and deposit it somewhere on land, or do you just leave it where you find it and just see it, just record it that it's there?
Okay, this is a question to James.
So basically, it all depends what sampling gear you have with you. When we're 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 meters under the sea, it's very hard to be able to actually pick a piece up, especially if we're using an observational tool such as the OFOS. But when we've been fortunate enough to travel with the remotely operated vehicle, the ROV, as you saw earlier in today, we have literally picked up these trash specimens with us to bring it with us, because they form microclimates. You can then study succession and what animals are then, you learn to adapt with this predominantly hard substrate in their environment that wasn't there before. But also it's nice to be able to pick something up off the seafloor that shouldn't be there.
Yeah. May I add to that? Maybe it's interesting to know for the people at home that nothing is going from the vessel outside in the ocean. So nothing is thrown in the ocean from the vessel. And all the plastic and garbage that we produce here on the vessel is brought back to Germany to be recycled properly in containers, because sometimes the ports that the vessel is calling in other countries, they are not supporting recycling. So everything is going back to Germany. So the whole rubbish, the whole plastics are going back and treated properly.
Yeah, so I also would like to add that this is definitely one of the 150 challenges what you have in deep sea science. And this links very much to this Challenger 150 program to study what life had been 150 years before and what is now. So we are definitely facing different problems. And the same question was yesterday posed in the core event of the Clean Ocean Laboratory to Carrie Howell, who is one of the heads of the Challenger 150 project. And maybe I know we have another lady from Challenger 150 in our chat in Zoom, Ana Hilario. She's a co-chair with Carrie. Maybe we can also pose this question to Carrie, how to deal with what we find in 5,000 meters with the waste.
I think that's an excellent idea, Saskia. Shall we see if we can get Anna now, or do we have any other questions?
No, I
from
think
the
we can get Anna on screen if it's possible, if she's there.
I am here.
There she is. Hello, Anna.
Hello, Julia. Hello, Hendrik. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Hello to everyone on board of SONNE. I'm ultra jealous from not being there with you. What can we do with the litter we find at 5,000 meters depth? On my opinion, we can't do much about it. We can try to collect what we find, but that's really not the solution. The solution is to stop using plastic, to find new alternatives and so forth. So we have to find the solution somewhere else and not at the bottom of the ocean. And I think that's the main idea.
Well, Anna, we heard a little bit from Saskia there about the Challenger 150 program, and we were hoping that you could introduce it for us.
Yes, sure. I invite you also to see the presentation that Carrie gave yesterday on the core event. But in a very brief summary, the Challenger 150 is a program that has been endorsed by the Decade and was born from two different working groups that were set up for the express purpose of developing a deep sea program for the UN Decade of Ocean Science. So The Challenge 150 is a global cooperative and is devoted to deliver the science we need to sustainably manage the deep ocean. And the truth is that it's a vehicle for coordination of deep sea research globally towards a set of common objectives. And those objectives are the objectives of the decade, like achieving a clean ocean. And the way we want to conduct this is through individual projects, like the IceDiva one. So different projects in different parts of the globe, acting and studying different parts of the ocean, will feed into a global cooperative, and by the end of the decade, we'll be able to fill lots of gaps that are currently there on terms of knowledge. In the terms of pollution, we hope that we're at the end of these 10 years be able to map the litter and find ways to do this in a concerted and standardized way. I think I've spoken enough already. We're running late, sorry.
No, thanks a lot. Great.
And I think these are themes that we've heard many times this evening, over and over again, from our different guests and from the scientists on the SONNE, that so much of deep sea exploration is extending beyond these single expeditions. It's not just what happens on the ship, but it's what happens after the ship gets home, and it's what happens in terms of the communication between the scientists on the ship and all of the other guests like you who are taking those data and carrying it further forward and communicating with each other in this big international community.
Oh, I think it would be great to go back to the team in the SONNE. Ah, there they are again, because we have some more questions brought to us via Slido that they might be happy to answer. First off, many greetings to Saskia from her family in Husum, is what just arrived in Slido. I thought I might just say that to you. And they are asking for the weather conditions, so maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, so the weather conditions, stormy. The North Atlantic is really stormy. So we had really to escape the storms, and we needed to replan our travel route. We could not cross the North Atlantic as we wanted to because it was blocked by 12 to 14 Meters Waves. Also der Atlantik war mit hohen Wellen versehen, 12 bis 14 Meter Welle. Wir hatten viel Sturm. Wir mussten regelmäßig vor dem Sturm praktisch fliehen. And also our working area we're approaching now is kind of a window of 3 stable days. So we are looking for weather holes, and it developed from the saying we are playing weather chess to we are playing weather roulette, because there was one storm after the other coming through. And the vessel is really dealing good with these weather conditions. Also wir mussten wirklich Wetterschach spielen, und wir finden jetzt die guten Wetterlöcher und hoffen, dass wir jetzt 2-3 Tage stabile Bedingungen für Stationsarbeit haben.
And how do you get the weather report? Do you just, watch TV and see what's coming up?
The weather report is captain's task maybe also, but James, you are our weatherman together with Captain Thilo.
We have a couple of ways that we use on board. For short introductions, we use an online source called Windy. That's very good with the wind and the waves, but predominantly the information that the captain works on comes directly from the Deutsche Wetterdienst, the German Meteorological Society. And they give us much more informative information, such as we're off the coast of Greenland and iceberg map, for example. And then during our science meetings every day at 6:30, we've had the pleasure of having Captain Thilo come and directly give us the daily weather report and what's coming next, how many people are going to be seasick the next day, how many people are not. And we've been battling the weather, but everybody on board is doing great, and we stay very informed.
All right, thanks. I have another quite technical question coming in. This is about the sounding of the bottom of the ocean before you conduct an experiment. So, and the user here is writing especially about the multi-beam method. So maybe you can explain this in 1 or 2 sentences, since somebody is so interested in that.
Mia, would you like to answer?
Yes, it's a great pleasure to have that question. Thanks. So basically, a motor beam system is an echo sounding system. So we're sending acoustic waves down to the seafloor, which are reflected, transmitted back to the echo sounder, and being recorded. So, and by the travel time, the time it takes for the acoustic signal to get down and up again, we can derive the actual water depth. And that's how we get an image from the seafloor. So basically it's something like, Ultraschall. An Ultraschall, I'm missing the word here, I'm sorry. But just in a very different spectrum of frequency. So we are talking about 12 kilohertz here, which is audible as well. So if we go pinging, which the word pinging describes what we are doing, sending the acoustic wave, you can actually hear it. It sounds like a little artificial bird sitting somewhere. I hope that answered your question.
All right, thanks. I have one last final question that was brought to me before. If you expect that St. Nicholas will find you on the 6th of December on the ship, or what's going to happen then?
Well,
the first stop.
Well, we are very close to the North Pole.
Yeah.
We even crossed the Polar Circle. Also wir sind sehr dicht am Polarkreis. Wir sind sogar mit der Sonne knapp so vorbeigefahren, sodass wir ziemlich dicht dran sind am Nordpol. And I'm very sure that on 6th of December, Santa Claus or Nikolaus will be on board. This is a tradition, and when you're on sea and you're away from family, I think he knows that there should be some sweets in front of your door.
As long as you've been nice.
Yeah, of course. Have you been nice?
I think so.
Katrin, have you been nice?
So. You might see.
You?
So.
Natürlich.
All right, thanks a lot. So before we finish off with the evening, let me just put all the stuff we heard in the bigger picture of the UN Ocean Decade that has just started. This is a 10-year time period that the United Nations declared especially to focus on our oceans and to make them a better place, to clean them up, to use them more sustainably. And the decade has just started in 2021 and will run until 2030. And we were part of the laboratory that has the name A Clean Ocean, but there are several other laboratories that also reflect the goals of this UN Ocean Decade, such as a predicted ocean, a productive ocean, a healthy and resilient ocean, a safe ocean, transparent and accessible ocean, and an inspiring ocean. So you see that the things we heard and discussed today are all part of a bigger 10-year plan to really focus research on marine environments and bring all aspects of the oceans in focus. Yeah.
Absolutely, and we are very grateful to all of the efforts on the research vessel SONNE, both for taking their time to join us today and also for all of the really important work that you're doing to help safeguard the ocean for now and for future generations.
And I think we have a short clip that you prepared to bring us in the spirit of the UN Ocean Decade that we would play right now.
Right.
Vamos criar os oceanos que queremos.
بیا اقیانوسی که لایقش هستیم رو با هم بسازیم.
Creating the ocean we want.
Créer l'océan que nous voulons.
den Ozean, den wir uns wünschen.
Creando el océano que queremos.
For et hav vi ønsker oss.
Für das Meer, was wie wird.
Creating the ocean we want.
Hi all.
Hallo Tilo.
Please finish now. 5 minutes to the station.
Oh, only 5 minutes for station. Oh, guys, we have to hurry up. 5 minutes for station. So sorry, we have to leave now. Everybody, goodbye. Enjoy the evening. Einen schönen Abend noch nach Deutschland und in die Welt.
All right.
Well, thank you to our colleagues on the Sonne.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you to so many other people from the administration of Senckenberg, from our wonderful guests here, Torben Riel and Hani Saidi, for all of the guests who joined us on Zoom, from Geomar, from Dosi, the crew here in Frankfurt, from our communications department, who helped put together this wonderful evening and do all of the sound and the cameras and especially the technology to connect us to the ship. And especially to the captain and crew of the Sonne who allowed our scientists to take this time, and especially to you, our audience here, our audience online, all around the world, and all the ships at sea.
Ja, auch von meiner Seite nochmal ganz vielen Dank. Natürlich erstmal an das Team auf der Sonne, das sich die Zeit genommen hat. Dann an alle Beteiligten hier in Frankfurt, die die Technik auf die Beine gestellt haben, dass hier wir diese Übertragung wahrmachen konnten. Danke an alle Projektbeteiligten, die sich zugeschaltet haben, von Plastic, Hot Mic, Dosi, iAtlantic und genau. Und natürlich ganz vielen Dank an Sie hier im Hörsaal und Sie online, dass Sie zugeguckt haben, dass Sie wirklich toll hier Ihre Fragen und Ihre Stimme reingebracht haben und ich hoffe, es war für Sie ein schöner Abend. Wir hoffen, dass es Ihnen sehr gefallen hat und wenn Sie jetzt richtig Lust haben und noch tiefer ins Thema einsteigen wollen, besuchen Sie uns gerne hier in Frankfurt im Senckenberg Naturmuseum in unserer Dauerausstellung zum Thema Meeresforschung. Und mir bleibt nur zu sagen, ganz vielen Dank, schönen Abend noch, kommen Sie gut nach Hause, bleiben Sie gesund und vielleicht bis bald.
Thank you all again from us. Please come back to the Senckenberg Museum Frankfurt anytime that you want to learn more about the deep sea. You can see a lot about marine information in our deep sea exhibit and our new coral reef exhibit that are open to the public all of the time. And to our friends on the Sonne, we say, come home safe. And to all of you, stay healthy and get home safe tonight. Thank you.
Okay.